All right, we've made it. We've done it. We are here. It's week one. You are in the jungle. I'm Matt Edwards. Thank you so much for tuning in. We got through the preseason. We did it all. The draft, the schedule announcements, the free agents, the uniform talks that we go through every year. We've got Open and Orange happening Sunday, and Sunday is now just a couple days away. I'm recording this on Thursday night. I've got Chiefs Ravens on in front of me. They just started the third quarter in that one, but let's focus today on a game that happens on Sunday at 1 p.m. The Bengals hosting the Patriots to open their 2024 campaign. We've got some stuff to talk about today, some big picture stuff. I don't know that the matchup of New England and Cincinnati is that sexy. That's a weird word, but is not that sexy of a matchup to talk about. But if you look at some of the things around the Bengals and focus more on them, I think there's a lot of fun stuff to talk about. So we'll get into that. I'll give you my prediction. I've got a little suspicion of something they might try to work on, and I'm going to work that into a bet. We'll do a little betting segment every week on the pregame episode, but I'm not just going to throw something out there. I'm going to tell you why I feel that way, and I'm going to try to connect that because I'm not like a huge gambling guy, but sometimes I'll see things and I'll say, well, this makes sense. That's it. I don't bet on the Bengals. I just think it's bad luck. We'll get into all that. I'll try not to be too distracted by this game that's on the TV. My God, do the Chiefs have a lot of speed. I don't like it. But let's feast on this first. Let's start with the big story. I did about 5 hours of driving today. Don't recommend doing that. Not fun, but sometimes you got to do that. Did about 5 hours of driving today, and I found myself thinking, at the end of this whole thing, at the end of the 2024 season, what would we consider a successful season for this year's Bengals? Now, of course, there can be a lot of things that happen that kind of dictate how we feel by the time that rolls around. But as of today, with this team that they're going to put on the field on Sunday, and we know what that team is, what would make this a successful year? Right away, it hit me that this year is kind of currently the opposite of last year. Last year, they were the darlings of the NFL, right? Back-to-back AFC championship appearances. They're ready to break through. Joe Burrow is the guy. Mahomes 1A, Burrow 1B. I think most people still feel that way. But last year, it was no doubt the Bengals are the team to beat, not named Kansas City in the AFC. This year, it's a little different. This year, a lot of people don't even have the Bengals going to the playoffs, if you're paying attention to what all the experts say. A lot of people are kind of wondering, are the Texans that new team? Are they the hot new team? Are they what the Bengals were last year? It kind of feels this year a bit like 2022 again, where a lot of people said, yeah, the Bengals are good, but that was a fluky run. Can they compete? Sure. But what we saw in that Super Bowl 56 run was a little fluky. The next year, a lot of people felt that way, and that was fine. Teams get hot in sports, and they go on runs. We see that. That said, if you watched all the Bengals games, I think it was pretty clear that they were a team to be dealt with. I would say the team that went into Kansas City in 2022 and the team that led the Super Bowl with a minute 42 left, if you watch that team down the stretch, there was no flukiness about it. But the Bengals kind of getting treated again the same way, the same treatment they got in 2022 prior to that season, kind of like, yeah, they're good, but it's hit or miss. I mean, kind of people were upset about the Good Morning Football show the other day. It's a good show on NFL Network. I don't watch it a ton. I don't watch a lot of TV a ton in general, but I think 3 of their 4 pickers did not have the Bengals in the playoffs. Like, that's insane. That's insane to not think that this team is one of the top, in the top half. 7 teams make it now. There's only 16 in each conference. So to not think that the Bengals can make it in, and I like the disrespect. People get upset about that. I like that. Throw all the chips on Joe Burrow's shoulder. Show all the chips on Jamar and T and all these guys. Let them feel like they're being underrated. I think that's great for any team. I love it. So here's the conclusion I came up with during this 5 hours of driving, is that outside of Cincinnati, there's really not a lot of pressure. Kansas City's got a lot of pressure this year. Baltimore, Houston. I mean, everyone loves Kansas City, right? They're going for the three-peat. I've got Sunday Night Football here on in front of me. I've heard it 10 times already. Looking for the three-peat. Baltimore is kind of the team that the Bengals were going into last year. They're the team that's knocking on the door. They're the team that's going to knock the Chiefs off the mountain, right? They played a sloppy AFC championship. You could make a good argument they could have won that game had they just tidied a few things up. And then there's Houston. Houston's the new kid on the block that everyone loves. For whatever reason, they're getting more love coming off their season where they beat Joe Flacco and the Browns in the playoffs than the Bengals kind of did in 2022. That's fine. Who cares? I don't necessarily care about the love that teams do get compared to the Bengals. That said, the Bengals aren't getting that attention. Nationally, I don't feel like there's a lot of pressure this year. However, on the inside, around Cincinnati, it's a different story, right? It feels like there's a lot of urgency with this team right now because the checks have been written. Joe Burrow's got his money. T. Higgins, he's got only a one-year check, but it's a big old check at $22 million. Jamar Chase, by the time this comes out tomorrow, the ink might be dry. All signs indicate he will sign a new deal. Even if he doesn't, he will sooner than later. There's a sense of urgency with this team right now. T is probably gone after this year, T. Higgins, right? You look at that defensive line. I mean, I looked it up today. All 4 defensive line starters will be 30 or older after this year. Sheldon Rankins is already 30. Hubbard, Hendrickson, B.J. Hill all turn 30 years old before the start of next season. Now, there will be new guys. New guys will come in, and I'm not saying Hubbard and Hendrickson are done already, but Father Time catches all of us, right? Especially when you're someone who bangs around in the trenches day after day, year after year since you were a little kid. There will be new guys, but there's no guarantee of what those guys will bring. It's hard to get a guy like Sam Hubbard in the 3rd round. You'll take Sam Hubbard in the 3rd round all year, all decade, all for whatever. You'll take guys like that forever. B.J. Hill, I mean, the Bengals just fleeced the Giants in that one. There's just a lot of things, what I'm saying, there are a lot of things that have gone right for the Bengals to get to this point, to get to the point they've been at for the last few years. And sometimes the tide turns. Sometimes things don't go as right as they have for a while. So right now, while you've got the right pieces in place, there's a sense of urgency. And I think on the inside, and the fans and the media who really follow this team understand that. Now is the time. So on the outside, maybe expectations are tempered a little bit. I don't know why. I mean, you look at what this team does. I mean, 3 consecutive winning seasons, you look at what they do when Joe Burrow's on the field. You saw it last year. Maybe they don't think Joe can stay on the field. I can go into that in a different episode. I think that is another thing that people are kind of overplaying their hand on. But the sense of urgency has to be there right now for this team. It is there right now for this team inside that building. They understand that a lot of the key pieces are either A, very expensive, and you damn well better get a championship out of them, or B, getting up there in age. I mean, Lou Anarumo talked today about how important Von Bell is. I'm going to have to look up how old Von Bell is. He's not a young pup, man. I mean, I think he was out of Ohio State before I was. Von Bell, he's 29. Okay, I was wrong. But again, like the rest of those guys, I would have thought he was like 32. The rest of the guys I talked about, again, Ho turned 30 this year. A lot of guys turning 30 on that defense this year. So the urgency's there. What's the pressure? I think in Cincinnati, it's pretty high. I think, now, does that mean you have to win a Super Bowl? Not necessarily. I think it's tough to say in September what you would consider a successful season. Anything short of a playoff run, I think, would be a disappointment. It's just tough to say right now. What we can say is this team is good enough to compete for a championship, and there's got to be that urgency there. They know within, tide can turn quick in the NFL. So there's that. And it starts Sunday with New England, a team they should have no trouble with. We'll get into, by the way, that's not something that's good, right? When you're sitting around, I mean, everyone and their brother, it's like, yeah, New England week 1 should be easy. That is famous last words right there. The more I hear that, the scarier it is. And there shouldn't be an issue. Rookie head coach, Jacoby Brissett. Great journeyman backup quarterback, not a guy who should come into Cincinnati and outduel Joe Burrow. But if you pay enough attention to the NFL, as I have, and I'm sure a lot of you have, a lot of times when a team's being told just what a cakewalk it's going to be, things don't go their way. The Chiefs about to take a 20-10 lead on the Ravens. I say that as if you don't already know the result when you're listening to this. Okay, the second thing I want to talk about in this opening here is just the And I know it's been beat to death, but man, you need the Patriots and teams like that in these first four. We've talked about it's Patriots week 1, Chiefs week 2, and then you've got Washington at home in Cincinnati, and then you've got Carolina. The Bengals need a fast start so bad. We know last year they started 1-3, that awful game to start against the Browns. They pulled one out against the Rams, a close one that they lost to the Ravens, and then got shellacked by the Titans. All things I will never understand. Let's just erase it from our memory. We know Joe was hurt. Things just weren't going well. The year before that, 0-2. That awful Steelers game to start the year, and then they lose to freaking Cooper Rush and the Cowboys in the second game. Stab me over that one. And then 2001, the year they went to the Super Bowl, they started 1-1. They were kind of hovered around 500 that whole year before getting hot at the end. But if you go back and look at these schedules, man, you got to get off that fast start. They've got the whole schedule this year compared to a lot of the teams we've talked about, and I talked about it last week in the preview episode of where I predicted every playoff team and what would happen in the playoffs. You can go back and listen to that one if you would like. But you got to bank those wins. John Tortorella, who was coach of the Blue Jackets and with the Flyers now, you say that all the time. In hockey and sports where they have 82 and 162 games, it's a little different. But a lot of times that's like, I remember 2022 and the Bengals end up in the AFC Championship, but Zach and Joe were coming out and saying, just relax, it's early. Yeah, it's early, but when you go 12-5 and the one seed's 13-4, suddenly that loss to Cooper Rush seems a hell of a lot worse. Suddenly, yeah, I understand you can't go out and win every game, but to get those in the bank, to win those ones that you should win. Good teams don't lose bad games. That could very well be the difference between being the 2 seed or the 1 seed or the 5 seed or the 4 seed. It's that simple. So, got to get back out to a fast start. And again, it's been talked about at length, but it just always kind of drove me crazy. The whole relax. It's middle of September. It's only 2 weeks in. Sure, it's only 2 weeks in, but when you lose the division by one game, it's going to seem pretty bad. So they need to go out there and start hot again. Every team needs to go out and start hot again. I shouldn't say again. They haven't started hot, but yeah, it's not that difficult of a topic to figure out, but my God, is that one of those things that drove me nuts, and we'll keep an eye on it. All right, let's go out of the jungle a little bit. We'll try this. I'm going to try to format these shows to kind of have some structure. I need to get some music to go along with this eventually. But for now, we'll just do this. This is Out of the Jungle. We're going to look around the AFC North a little bit. I'll give you a little thoughts on where we're at with the rest of the division. So the Steelers take on 57-year-old Kirk Cousins and the Falcons in week 1. If you're listening to this podcast, you probably are not a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I feel the same way. However, everyone's kind of sleeping on them, as am I. I picked them to go 6-11 or something. Maybe that's wishful thinking. But that's a team that made the playoffs last year. Going back and forth between Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph at quarterback. Now, they've lost some pieces. They, I don't know who they've lost, actually. Have they lost anyone? They added Patrick Queen on the defensive side of the ball. At any rate, nothing crazy happened with Pittsburgh. Except for the whole quarterback position, where they had Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett last year. And whatever you think of Russell Wilson, whatever you think of Justin Fields, those two are both upgrades over the aforementioned quarterbacks. Mason stinking Rudolph and Kenneth Pickett. Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, both significantly better. Steelers went 9-8 last year. Kind of held their own a little bit with the Bills in the playoffs. I hope, you hope, we all know what a lucky team they are. If there's a break to be caught, they will catch it. So look, I hope the Steelers go 0-17. However, just kind of get those expectations right now that if there's a team to catch a break, if there's a place where Russell Wilson suddenly looks like Russell Wilson again, it's going to be Pittsburgh. Luckiest team in the history of sports. And if there's a break to be caught, they will catch it. So just mentally prepare yourself for that right now. Cleveland hosting Dallas. Fox giving a little haze sesh to Tom Brady, right? His first assignment, he has to go to Cleveland. It's supposed to be nice there. Cowboys, Dallas, I don't know what to think of Cleveland. On paper, they've got so much talent. Deshaun Watson, sometimes he looked good last year. He's never, I don't think, going to look like the guy they guaranteed $230 million to. But on paper, I mean, that team's stacked. Their offensive line's been a little banged up. So it's just, they're one of those teams where if they went 6-11, you wouldn't be surprised. If they went 11-6, you wouldn't be surprised. They might be the only team like that. They're kind of the opposite of Pittsburgh, where if there's a hurdle to be stepped on and tripped on and fall over and land on your face, Cleveland will find it. They call them the factory of sadness for a reason, because they are a sad franchise, and bad franchises do stupid stuff. So we'll see what happens there. But again, kind of the opposite there. And I say that with all due love to a lot of Browns fans who I'm friends with and I know are listening to this. You guys know too. If there's a break not to be caught, the Browns will figure out a way to not catch it. And then finally, Baltimore. They're in action right now. By the way, Justice Hill, the brother of Bengals starting cornerback Dax Hill, really getting a lot of touches here. I kind of thought Derrick Henry would take some away from him, but he's being featured quite a bit here. Now, the Ravens I talked about earlier, they're interesting now in that I feel like they've gotten the preseason attention the Bengals got last year, where the expectation is that if someone's going to knock Kansas City off the top of the mountain, it's going to be the Baltimore Ravens. And a lot of smart people, a lot of people I respect and listen to their podcast, they kind of seem to be rooting for this team, and I think that's okay. I think they do that in a way where Lamar Jackson is such a unique player that people who don't have a rooting interest in the AFC North, or if they do this at a national level and they're not allowed, or at least they're not supposed to, unveil their rooting interest, they want to see Lamar do well. And I get that. He's fun to watch, when he's, not playing your team. He's an interesting player to watch. I don't know that we've ever really seen many, if any, players like him. He's an all-time playmaker. But we'll see how they handle that pressure, right? Last year, they come out, they get the 1 seed. Well, it's interesting when everyone's paying attention to the Bengals in your division, and everyone's paying attention to, Pittsburgh's been there and Baltimore's obviously been very successful, but they're kind of getting that Cinderella treatment this offseason, and I'm curious to see how they can live up to that, right? Lamar got another MVP. He's kind of really only missing one thing on that resume at this point. He's got the contract. He's got the 2 MVPs. The one thing he's missing is a Super Bowl trophy. He's not been to a Super Bowl, so I guess he's missing an AFC championship as well. But you get the point. He's got that last hurdle to get over. How will they handle the pressure? So those are my thoughts, my big thoughts off the top of my head as we go into the 2024 season with the division foes. I'm going to grab my water. Be patient with me for 5 seconds. If you're watching on YouTube, you got some unpleasant views there. I apologize about that. It's 11 o'clock at night. Live with it. It's how we're rolling, baby. Going to be a lot of late nights. I'm not good at the whole staying up late thing. It's tough because I like to wake up early. We'll get through it. I'm trying to build that dad strength, get a little tougher in that department. Because some dudes, I'll talk to people, like they stay up till 12:30 watching the game, get up at 6. I feel like hell by the middle of the morning if I do that. If anybody has any advice, drop that in the comments. Okay, I told you off the top of the show that I had a little suspicion that I'll weave into a bit of a betting segment. So, for starters, the line now is down to 8.5. The Bengals are 8.5-point favorites. I would just stay away from it. You don't know what we're going to get out of New England. Now, if I had to guess, and I will guess here shortly, I would say the Bengals will win by double digits. But anytime you're sitting there thinking to yourself, well, that's an easy one, that's what Vegas wants you to think. They want you to think, what are you kidding me? That's an easy one. Give it to me, because they know better than all of us. I don't like it because it's a new quarterback. It's a rookie head coach. Who knows what they're going to come out and do? The Bengals don't really have an idea, and Joe Burrow kind of touched on this. They don't really have an idea what looks they're going to get. Now, Gerard Mayo was on the staff last year, but there's just a lot of unknowns. Who knows how much of Belichick stuff he will hang on to? Who knows how much of it he will decide to do his own thing? So I would just stay away from the line. Week 1, betting's tough. as easy as it seems, like it's tough in that first week. You don't know what New England's going to do, and the Bengals have some new pieces as well. So I would stay away from the line. I don't like it either way. I'll get into that more in a second. The bet that I do like, I was kind of going through, and I'll tell you why I like it. It's Chase Brown. He is plus 150 to have 20 or more receiving yards. He did that in 3 of the final 5 games last year when they really started using him. I could see a situation, and I think maybe this is why they wanted to get him more involved last year. I could see a situation where, with the deep threats they have in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, I could see a situation where you got a guy like that who's a threat to take it all the way to the end zone every time he catches the screen, and we've seen that with his speed. You draw those defenders up, man. You get a couple good ones to him early in the game, and then suddenly the defense can't play on their heels so much, and that opens everything up. It's kind of like opening up, we talk about opening up the pass with the run. This is opening up the deep ball with the short ball, opening up the long ball with the screens. So I just like that one. I think they're going to work it to him. Zach Moss is going to get his touches as well. And plus 150, I just like that. I could see him having, 4 catches for 31 yards, something like that. Maybe he breaks one. He has 4 for 58 yards. But I think he'll have more than 20 yards receiving. Chase Brown plus 150 on that. You can throw $10 down, win 15. You can throw 100 down, win 150. Whatever you want to do. Good odds there. And I say I have a suspicion. I think that early they are going to try and, I don't want to say take pressure off Joe Burrow, but they're going to want to make sure that Joe is not getting hit as much as he has, because he's been hit a lot for a guy going into his 5th year in the NFL. So especially with this first month, we talked about how light that schedule is. I have to think Dan Pitcher, the new offensive coordinator, and Zach Taylor are saying to themselves, hey, if we can bully these teams with the rush and Joe doesn't have to go out there and be Superman every week, let's do it. Let's get him through this first month of the season feeling good, not all banged up, not bruised up, nothing on the injury report. So if you want to place bets on the Bengals, I'd go with the running back numbers, the rushing totals. Now, it's hard to figure out because we really don't know what the splits are going to be like. It seems like it's going to be 50-50, but we don't know who's going to work well in this system. Hopefully they both work well. But that first week, I didn't want to go into who's going to rush for more yards because we don't really know at this point. But I did feel comfortable with that Chase Brown bet, so we'll hit that. And, bet the overs on the running backs. I like that a lot. That sets up a lot of stuff if they can get that going. So that's where we're at on that. We'll do a betting segment. My prediction, I do think the Bengals need to avoid. I think New England's going to try to drag the Bengals into the mud, make this a bit of a, gross rock fight. They don't want to get in a shootout. They can't win a shootout against this team. But like I said, I don't like what I don't know. We don't know. For years, we knew that Tom Brady was going to find a way to nickel and dime you and put up 34 points, even if he had no receivers out there on the field. I don't feel like we understand what Jacoby Brissett's going to do. We've seen him. He's played the Bengals a couple times. I won't bring up the last time he played the Bengals. You can go look that up for yourself. It was a terrible Halloween night, but we don't know. That said, the Bengals, they've got too much firepower this early in the year. They're going to be pumped to go out there. I brought up earlier that they're kind of the underdogs all of a sudden. They know that. They like that. I like the Bengals to win at 24-10. Maybe a little closer than we'd expect at halftime. Maybe like 10-3, 14-3 while they iron things out. It's exciting to see what Joe can do now that he's had a full training camp. We're so used to them kind of coming out. I talked about the slow starts. We're so used to them coming out and needing some time to kind of figure things out. We won't really have that. We'll have that on the right side. Trent Brown's a bit of a worry this Sunday because he's barely practiced with the team. That said, most of the offensive line you got to feel pretty good about right now. The other 4 guys, you absolutely feel good about. They've played together. They'll be good together. So we'll see what happens there. But it's, the Bengals, I like them to win by double digits. I wouldn't bet it just because, again, I say 24-10. You're one goofy play from it being 24-17 there and you lose the bet. But that's betting every week, man. It's the NFL. So do what you want with that, but I'll take the Bengals 24-17 over New England. One for the road. Let's hit it. Let's get out of here. Let's wrap this sucker up. It'll be out on a Friday morning for you so you can get hot going into the weekend, ready for week one. And my God, do the Chiefs just have guys who can get upfield? I don't like it. One for the road. So the Bengals have lost 3 of their last 4 season openers, all 4 in the Joe Burrow era. They've lost 3 of 4. All 3 losses, by the way, excruciating. That first one, 16-13, they lose to the Chargers when Randy Bullock pulls both calves at once when he's going for the game-winning field goal. Year 2 of Joe, they beat the Vikings in overtime. More on that in a second. Year 3, they just can't get out of the Steelers' way. TJ Watt's batting passes, picking them off. It's goofy. They miss 2 extra points. They lose to the dumbass Steelers in week 1. And then last year, the Browns, the Bengals just in the mud. Burrow's playing on one leg. It was ugly. 2021, the Super Bowl year, they beat the Vikings in overtime to start the season. So when the Bengals go 1-0 in week 1, they've never not made the Super Bowl. That's important to take with you as you talk your talk throughout the week. You got to take advantage early. That's the thing, man. We talked about it earlier. I'm being a bit redundant here, but I do think it's important. Not because going 1-0 means you'll go to the Super Bowl. Otherwise, that would mean half the teams were going to do it. But to take advantage early, not to get in this. I mean, you got to think they don't like the mental space they're in with those other ones either. I mean, that's just, you want to talk about discouraging to lose the way they've lost some of these season openers. They've got to stay out of that. The NFL's given them a bit of a gift here to do that. Really, they've given themselves a gift by finishing 4th place last year. So they're in great shape. I mean, we talked about the schedules last week. Doesn't get a whole lot easier than what the Bengals have, and they deserve it, given last year they had one of the hardest schedules of all time and still went 9-8. So that's where we're at with that. Just interesting to see. I mean, we've not had a quiet ease into the season year. Joe's always been appendicitis, something, and then this year you've got the Jamar stuff. Oh, by the way, that's the first time I've mentioned Jamar on the show today, is in terms of his contract. I'm sure that deal seems inevitable. It'll probably be done by the time this show comes out. I don't know how much there will be to talk about it. He's going to be either the highest or second highest paid receiver in the league by tomorrow. That seems inevitable. Crazier things have happened than it not getting done. He said he will speak to the media tomorrow, which kind of indicates maybe he's ready to put pen to paper. So we'll keep an eye on that. He's going to be out there Sunday. We'll get to see the guys in action. It's going to be a lot of fun. This is, again, I don't know that I feel the same. I do. I don't know that the buzz is as big around the Bengals as it has been maybe last year and maybe even in 2022. But make no bones about it, this team is good enough to win the Super Bowl again. And as long as Joe Burrow is under center with this team or in the shotgun with this team, if he's taking the stinking snaps, they're going to be good. They're going to be a contender. The floor for this team with him at quarterback is double-digit wins. You get there, you get in the dance, some fun things can happen. So that's that. All the hope in the world this year. We're going to do this twice a week. The next episode will be out on Monday. We'll recap what we've seen, go over the whole weekend. We've got NFL opening week. It's no longer opening weekend. You got a Thursday night game, Friday night game. Saturday they give to college football. Then Sunday you got all the games. Great game Sunday night. Great game Monday night. I mean, they've got four out of 5 days here. It's NFL opening week. It's incredible. So think about it. A year from now, we could be watching the Bengals on the Thursday night opener if things go well. But we got to get through week one first. There's Samaje Perine dropping a pass for the Chiefs. Good God, don't you hate to see that? That really hurt, didn't it? That's that, man. I appreciate everyone tuning in. Going to be fun all season long. If you want to chime in on the app formerly known as Twitter, I am at Matt Edwards. If you're watching on YouTube, tap that subscribe, give it a like, comment, tell me I need to shave, take a shower, all that fun stuff, and we'll go from there. It's in the jungle. Appreciate everyone tuning in. We'll do it again. We'll see you on Monday.